My story starts about a year and a half ago, right after my parents passed away in a tragic, unexpected car accident. It was devastating, of course, but it was also financially complicated. They had worked hard their whole lives, built up a decent nest egg, and owned a beautiful, fully paid off home. Because I was the eldest and had always been the more financially responsible one, the one who managed their bills, helped them with their investments, and generally kept their affairs in order, they had left everything to me in their will. It was a straightforward will, a simple document specifying that my sister, Clara, would receive a substantial lump sum payment and a generous annuity, enough to ensure she was comfortable and secure for the rest of her life. But the house, the primary investment accounts, and the responsibility of managing the rest of the estate fell squarely on my shoulders. My parents knew Clara was impulsive, terrible with money, and prone to making reckless decisions based on whatever shiny new thing caught her attention. They wanted to protect her from herself, not punish her. I understood that, and I was committed to honoring their wishes. I loved my sister truly. She was 5 years younger than me, and I'd essentially helped raise her. We'd always had a close relationship, or so I thought. We weren't just sisters, we were each other's only remaining family. I felt a deep responsibility to look out for her, especially now. The trouble started almost immediately. That lump sum she received, which was meant to cover her rent, clear her few minor debts, and give her a cushion for a couple of years, was gone in 3 months. Poof, vanished. She bought a ridiculously expensive car she couldn't afford to insure, took a spontaneous trip to a tropical island with a new boy, friend she barely knew, and generally treated the money like it was an endless supply from a magic tap. When she finally came to me, sheepish and panicked, saying she couldn't make her rent payment, I felt a familiar wave of disappointment, but also pity. This was classic Clara. I told her I couldn't give her another large amount. Not only was it going against my parents' wishes for the estate, but it would also teach her nothing. Instead, I offered her a solution. She could move into the guest apartment above the detached garage on the property. The main house was huge, and the apartment had its own entrance, kitchen, and bathroom. She could live there rent, free until she got back on her feet, and I would cover a small monthly allowance for groceries, provided she actively looked for work and went to a financial planning session I'd already scheduled for her. She agreed, albeit reluctantly, and moved in. Things were tense for a while. She hated the rules, she hated being accountable, and she clearly resented that I was now the one with control over the purse strings. But she was family, and I kept telling myself this was the tough love she needed. Over the next few months, small things started to go wrong. Very small things at first, so insignificant that you would dismiss them as normal, everyday glitches. The car I was driving, the reliable sedan my parents had gifted me, suddenly started having bizarre electrical issues that multiple mechanics couldn't trace. Once, while driving on the highway, the dashboard lights went completely dead, followed by the power steering, forcing me to wrestle the car to the shoulder in a heart-stopping moment. Then my personal laptop, which contained all the detailed estate documents, including the annuity information and investment statements, suddenly died. The repair service said the hard drive had been completely wiped, not just failed, but wiped, and they couldn't recover anything. I had backups, thankfully, but the timing was suspicious. I started feeling ill frequently, too. Not violently ill, but a persistent, low-grade nausea and fatigue that lingered for weeks, especially after having a meal at home. I chalked it up to stress and grief. My parents' passing had taken a toll, after all. These incidents, while annoying and costly, never once pointed a finger at Clara. Why would they? She was my sister, my family. The big house, inherited from my parents, was old and sometimes a pain to maintain. The central air conditioning unit had been acting up, cycling on and off erratically, and last week, It finally gave up the ghost entirely, leaving my main living area stifling hot. That's what led me to call the repair company. I picked one with good reviews, and they sent out a technician, a man named Mark, who looked young but seemed professional and methodical. He spent the morning working on the unit, which was located outside, but he also had to come inside several times to check the thermostat and the vents. This brings me to that moment in the living room. I had just walked in to offer him a glass of water when the sudden, shocking scene unfolded. He dropped his wrench, his whole demeanor shifting from focused mechanic to a man on high alert. He didn't look at me, but past me, his eyes darting to the windows, then the main door. Then the locking of the door and those 9 words whispered with terrifying conviction. "She is watching you. You need to leave now." I stood there, momentarily paralyzed, utterly confused. I don't understand. Who is watching me? What are you talking about? Are you okay?" I asked, my voice shaky. He walked towards me, keeping his back to the wall, and I instinctively backed away. He saw the fear in my eyes and held up his hands to calm me. "Listen to me. I was outside, working on the unit. It's next to the garage. Your sister walked out of the garage apartment with her phone held up to her ear, pretending to be on a call. She wasn't. She stopped right where she could see me working, took a picture of my van's license plate, and then she looked right up at the second-floor window of your house, then back down at her phone, and she typed something, a lot of things. She had a look on her face, a truly evil look, like she was waiting for a signal. She's not just watching me, she's watching you." He paused, looking directly into my eyes, his voice gaining urgency. "But that's not the bad part. When I opened the main service panel on the AC unit, I found something. The wiring harness. It was sliced, not frayed or worn down. Sliced cleanly, almost surgical, and taped over with black electrical tape to keep it from shorting out immediately. It was rigged to fail, designed to burn out, but not in a small way. If I hadn't found it, and you had turned on unit later, the whole system would have gone up, and the main conduit runs right up the wall next to your bedroom. This was an attempt to start an electrical fire, a serious one, a fire that would have looked like an accident. The air in the room suddenly felt impossibly thick. My brain was short, circuiting. Fire, Clara, an accident, it couldn't be. It was insane. No, you must be mistaken. I whispered, clutching my arms. "That's my sister. We live together. She wouldn't." He cut me off firmly. "She wouldn't what? Miss an opportunity. Look, I used to be a foreman for an insurance fire investigation company before I switched to repairs. I've seen this before. Accidental fires don't happen like this. This was deliberate sabotage, and based on how she's watching the house right now, I have a very bad feeling about what else she might have planned. Your sister is capable of things you don't want to believe. You have to treat this as an immediate threat. I'm telling you, you need to grab whatever you absolutely need and get out of this house right now. I'll tell the office the unit needs a specialized part, and I'll be back tomorrow, which will buy you some time." His conviction was terrifying. His face wasn't one of a paranoid fantasist. It was the face of a man who had seen too much and was genuinely trying to save a stranger. All the little weird things, the car, the laptop, the constant nausea, suddenly slammed together in my mind, forming a horrific, undeniable picture. The car trouble could have been simple tampering. The laptop wipe was an attempt to destroy the financial records that proved I was the rightful executor. And the constant illness, that cold, dreadful realization washed over me. She was poisoning me. Low dose, something she could slip into my food or drink while we were eating together. Something that mimicked chronic stress or a lingering illness. The possibility, however monstrous, had become more plausible than denial. I looked at the front door, locked and bolted, and then toward the garage apartment. My own sister, just a few yards away, waiting, watching. I couldn't run. If I left, she would know I was onto her, and she might accelerate whatever sick, twisted plan she had. I had to know for certain. I needed proof, undeniable evidence, because without it, I couldn't go to the police and I couldn't live with the doubt. I looked at Mark. I can't just run. I need proof. If she's doing this, she's doing it for the estate, for the money. The will is the key. She might have tried to find a copy. Proof is good." Mark said, nodding slowly, a deep furrow in his brow. "But only if you get it and leave. You can't stay here and wait. It's too dangerous. What's the easiest, quickest place to find a smoking gun?" My heart was hammering a frantic rhythm against my ribs. Her phone. I choked out. She keeps everything on her phone. She's careless. She's probably got texts, notes, something. I realized the true horror of the situation. I was about to violate my sister's privacy, but in this lie, for death scenario, the concept of privacy was meaningless. We formulated a quick, desperate plan. Mark would go back outside and work noisily on the AC unit, making sure Clara knew he was still there, distracting her. I would sneak out the back door, circle around, and enter her apartment through a spare key I had kept for emergencies, and God knows this qualified. It was the only way to get close without her seeing me leave the main house. We coordinated via quiet texts after he went back out, and I crept through the house, the silence amplifying the sound of my own frantic breathing. Every shadow seemed to move. Every floorboard creak felt like a shout. When I reached the small, dusty garden shed that separated the main house from the garage, I paused, my back pressed against the wood, listening to the muffled sounds of Mark's tools clanging. Outside, I slipped the key into the lock of the apartment door, turned it with agonizing slowness, and stepped inside. The air was heavy with the scent of cheap perfume and stale takeout. Her apartment was a mess, clothes everywhere, dishes piled up, a stark contrast to the neat life I tried to maintain. I moved directly to her bedroom, my hands shaking so badly I could barely keep my balance. Her phone was lying face down on her nightstand, charging. I snatched it up, my conscience screaming, but the survival instinct was louder, colder, and utterly focused. I had known her 4-digit passcode since she first got the phone, another detail she'd been too lazy to change. I unlocked it. What I saw wasn't just proof, it was a blueprint for my destruction. I went straight to her text messages, scanning the recent conversations. The texts weren't with a boyfriend or a friend, they were with a contact simply saved as N. I started scrolling. The messages were a meticulous record of her escalating malice, dating back months. They confirmed my worst fears and then exceeded them exponentially. The car should stop for good on the freeway this week. Make it look like a total failure. I need her assets released. And later, the sickness is starting to work. She's complaining about the fatigue. Keep the dose low and steady. She can't die yet. The will requires a natural cause for the full payout. The physical revulsion I felt was overwhelming, a sickening lurch in my stomach. She wasn't just stealing my money. She was trying to poison me to secure a better inheritance payout. Then I saw the messages related to Mark's discovery, the AC unit. Phase 2 initiated. The technician is there now. He should find the cut wire and call it an accident. The house fire will be the cover story. The police will close it as a faulty unit. We need to be ready to act fast. My eyes widened, and I had to clamp a hand over my mouth to stop a strangled cry. The fire was meant to be the final step, the guaranteed end. But then I saw the most recent thread, the one that made my blood run cold, the one that fully explained Mark's paranoia. It was a countdown, a series of texts sent between Clara and N. Over the past hour, Clara, he's still working on the unit. He hasn't left, she's inside. N, waiting for the window. Clara, getting nervous. She just walked into the living room. I told her I'd check in 10. Start the sequence. N, got it. T-minus 15 minutes until the accident is initiated. Clara, good. Make it look final. I want the house burned to the ground. She needs to be erased. N, initiating. T-minus 10 minutes. Don't mess this up, Clara. Your part is to be seen leaving the property for an alibi right before the fire starts. Clara understood. Just go, go, go. The last message, timed just 3 minutes before Mark had locked my door, said, T-minus 5 minutes. Get ready, 5 minutes. I had been less than 5 minutes away from something happening, something irreversible, something that would have either started a fire while I was trapped inside, or maybe an accomplice, N, was preparing to enter the house, perhaps through a back window, thinking I was weak and confused from the poison. Mark's quick thinking had interrupted the sequence, bought me a precious few minutes, and given me the evidence I needed. My hands were shaking violently, but I was hyper, focused. I knew the police would need all of this. I rapidly took screenshots of every single incriminating text message, hundreds of them, all proving not just her motive money, but her method poison, arson, and a detailed plan to stage my death as an accident. I transferred all the images to a secure cloud drive, and then, as a final, desperate measure, I forwarded the entire text thread to my personal email and to my lawyer's emergency contact email, adding a short, frantic subject line. My sister is trying to kill me, all evidence attached. I deleted the forwarded messages from her phone's sent folder, put the phone back on the nightstand, and exactly as I found it, and slipped out of the apartment. I ran back toward the main house, calling Mark's personal number, my voice a choked whisper. Mark, I have it. It's worse than we thought. They were on a 5-minute countdown to the accident. I've got screenshots of a whole plan. I'm going to the back gate. Call the police, but don't tell them everything yet. Just say you found evidence of deliberate tampering that suggests foul play and you're worried about the homeowner's safety. He responded immediately, his voice calm and professional, giving me the last instruction I needed. Go, I'll stall her. Take the car you can trust. Drive directly to the central police station. Not stop. Do not answer her calls. I bolted through the house, grabbed my keys, my wallet, and the old reliable car I had parked in the far end of the driveway, the one Clara hadn't managed to sabotage yet. I didn't look back. As I sped away, checking my rearview mirror, I saw Mark outside the garage apartment, standing next to a very agitated Clara, who was now yelling into her phone, likely trying to reach in and figure out why their plan had stalled. The look of pure rage and confusion on her face was chilling, but it gave me a fierce, protective satisfaction. I had survived her first real attempt, so that's the situation I was in. I was driving away from my own home, a fugitive from my own sister, with evidence on my phone that proved she wasn't just stealing from me, but was actively trying to murder me for financial gain. I had the text messages, the clear motive, and the physical evidence of tampering Mark had found, and I had to make a choice. The police were the immediate priority, of course, but what about the rest of it? What about the months of poisoning, the calculated betrayal, the sheer, unimaginable cruelty of the person I had loved and protected? The police could handle the legal side, but I felt a primal urge for justice that went beyond a jail cell. Before I tell you what happened next, what the police did, and what I orchestrated for my sister, I want you to pause and comment below what you would have done in my shoes. Would you have let the police handle it and walked away? Or would you have used the information you had to dismantle her life in a way that matched her desire to dismantle yours? Tell me what justice truly means in a situation like this. I drove straight to the precinct. I didn't even park. I pulled up to the curb and ran inside, demanding to speak to a detective, my voice ragged and my story a confusing jumble of fear and accusation. They must have sensed the genuine panic, because a Detective Harris, a calm, middle-aged woman, took me into an interview room almost immediately. I didn't hold back. I showed her the physical evidence of the cut wires Mark had photographed. I detailed the bizarre car issues, the laptop wipe, the sickness, and finally, I showed her the hundreds of screenshots of the texts, the full, undeniable conversation with N that included the countdown, the poisoning, the motive, and the plan for the staged fire. Detective Harris went from skeptical to utterly stone, faced in minutes. She had seen enough to know this wasn't a delusion. The detailed planning, the clear financial motive, the corroboration of the repairman, it was too cohesive to be anything but true. She immediately alerted the necessary units. Mark was contacted and asked to come in, but he was told to act normal for a few hours. A team was dispatched to my house under the guise of investigating a reported gas leak to secure the scene, collect the AC unit for forensic analysis, and, most importantly, detain Clara. What followed was a slow, agonizing process of official justice. Clara was arrested at the scene, confused and furious. They found the pills, a cocktail of potent prescription medications that caused the severe nausea and fatigue I'd been feeling, hidden in her apartment. They traced the burner phone she used to communicate with N. It turned out N was an old, unsavory contact of hers, a petty criminal she'd hired to help with the sabotage and, eventually, the planned arson. My lawyer, who had also received the emergency email, was instrumental. He immediately filed for a protective order and secured my financial assets, cutting off any access Clara might have had or been trying to get. But for me, the legal process wasn't enough. Seeing my sister in handcuffs was a hollow victory. She had tried to poison me for months, calculated my death, and plotted to burn my house down. A jail sentence, while deserved, felt like a clean ending for her, a chance to come out in a few years and start fresh. I knew I couldn't let her have that clean slate. The emotional debt was too great. I needed her to understand the depth of her actions, and for that I needed to hit her where it hurt most. Her reputation, her few remaining relationships, and her last shreds of comfort. I realized I held the key to her past actions. All the texts, all the planning, all the despicable, greedy words she had used to describe me and our parents. She had not only plotted against me, but she had also been incredibly disrespectful to our parents' memory, saying things in the texts like, "They were so stupid to trust her with the money," and "It's my turn now. I deserve the house more than that martyr." I spent the next week in a safe, anonymous hotel, working. I wrote a long, detailed letter, not just to the police or the press, but to every family member, every distant cousin, every one of her friends, and every former employer I could find. I didn't just summarize the situation. I attached the full, unedited text message chain. I let her words speak for themselves. I explained how she had stolen, lied, and meticulously planned my murder for the inheritance. I didn't add hyperbole or drama. I simply presented the evidence of her depravity. I knew this was cruel, but I felt a fierce, burning righteousness. She wanted me erased. I would erase her social standing, her reputation, her ability to ever manipulate anyone again. The reaction was swift and devastating for her. Our extended family, who had previously been sympathetic to her plight, as the younger sister cut out of the major inheritance, were horrified. The evidence was irrefutable. She was completely isolated. Her few remaining friends publicly disowned her. When she was released on bail, a mistake I still believe the system made, she had nowhere to go. The garage apartment was sealed off as a crime scene, and no family member would take her in. She was forced to rely on her Kokens, Bearder N, who was equally caught up in the legal mess. The climax of this whole awful saga came during the preliminary hearing. Clara, thinking she could charm or manipulate her way out, tried to paint me as an unstable, grief-stricken sister who was delusional and had fabricated the texts. She tried to deny everything, claiming I was obsessed with money and trying to frame her. I sat there listening to her lies, calm and utterly detached. When it was my turn, I didn't say a word. I simply stood up and addressed the judge, pointing to my lawyer, who then presented the full, unedited, forensically verified texts and the physical evidence report on the cut wires. The air went out of the room. When the judge heard the words, "She needs to be erased," read aloud from her own phone, and the cold, calculated plan for the fire, there was no more doubt. Her bail was revoked immediately. The aftermath was long, painful, but ultimately satisfying. Clara was tried, convicted on multiple felony counts including attempted murder, conspiracy to commit arson, and assault with a deadly weapon, the poison. She received a very long prison sentence. N also faced serious charges. My life was irrevocably changed, of course. I sold the house. I couldn't bear to live in a place where I had been systematically poisoned and almost burned alive. I used the money to start a new life in a new city. I still get sick sometimes, and I'm constantly checking my food and my locks, but I'm alive. Mark, the repair guy, became a true friend. I paid him a substantial bonus, and we still check in on each other. He told me that his 9 words came from instinct, something he learned during his time in fire investigation. He saw the pattern and knew. My story is a cautionary tale, a lesson in how the quietest betrayals are often the deadliest. You can protect yourself from strangers, but how do you protect yourself from the person who shared a childhood room with you? You can't. All you can do is accept the terrible reality when it hits, trust the warning signs no matter how outlandish they seem, and fight back with everything you have. I lost my sister that day, but I saved my life. I don't know if I'll ever truly recover from the feeling of being hunted by family, but I know I did what I had to do to survive. I survived the poison, the attempted murder, and the psychological warfare. I made sure that her plan to erase me failed completely, and in doing so, I erased her ability to hurt anyone else. So I survived, and I fought back, and I have no regrets. Like this video if you were on my side, if you think I was right to expose her and fight for my life. Subscribe for more stories like this, because sometimes truth is far stranger and much scarier than fiction. And please share your final thoughts on this whole mess in the comments section below. What was the scariest part of this story for you? I'll see you all in the next story.